Hey, I'm Jackson Lanzing.
And I'm Collin Kelly.
And together we are the writers of Star Trek Year 5. Hurrah, 100%. Genuinely, because if you run into a problem that you can't solve with science, she's like relatively smart at that, but if you run into literally anyone, there's a good chance that she'll be able to speak to them where you will not be able to. So communication, A+, number one, hurrah, for sure.
Man, I'm polar opposite. I gotta go with Kirk. I know that's putting my life on the line.
Wow, man.
I know, I like
You are now the red shirt.
I like to live dangerously and I have to learn Kung Fu at the feet of the master.
All right, I love it. Kirk Fu.
What I love about the original series is its raw creativity. They're always able to approach things that are, perhaps too dangerous, perhaps too topical for TV at the time, but they were able to approach it from an innovative and interesting way that really created something that was new and exciting.
I also am deeply in love with the way that Star Trek can handle social storytelling, especially in the original series. What the original series has that no one else has is Kirk and Spock and Bones. That triumvirate, that way that you can identify any problem through the id, the ego, and the superego, and really run it down and find interesting, enlightened solutions. It's just like a perfect storytelling device, and it has been since 1967. Continuing a 60s story in a modern lens requires a little bit of thought, because what we don't want to do is just go ahead and do, the show as it would have existed in 1970. We weren't alive then, let alone able to really speak to the social conditions that were available then. What we can do is try to tell the stories that we need to tell, the stories that are modern, that are relevant, that are that Star Trek would tell if it was being created right now. But because we're in comics and we have this ageless, timeless cast, we get to be able to do that with William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy and DeForest Kelley and, George Takei and Nichelle Nichols. Like, you get the whole run of these amazing actors to tell modern, interesting stories.
Yeah, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. Like, we have these actors, and we think of them as the actors in using these roles. We're not making it up out of whole cloth. We're just continuing what existed already. So as long as we're maintaining the emotional through line of those characters that we love so much, and then tell relevant, interesting stories, I think that keeps us focused on our true north. I'm a writer, not a speller.
You have no idea how true that is. So everything that we're doing in Star Trek Year 5 is designed to be the season and series finale of Star Trek. So as a result, what we're really trying to do is pay off all of the threads that you might have picked up over the course of TOS, that you might have been excited about in Star Trek generally, but that maybe they didn't have the chance to fully flesh out and fully understand. So our first big one is the Tholians.
Yep. What we really wanted to do is take a look at, in the history of Star Trek, what were the untouched pieces that we can really lens in on and elaborate on, which is why the Tholians are such an awesome opportunity to show something that they could never afford, that they weren't really interested in. There were so many other vibrant aliens, but after 30 years of Trek, we've seen a lot of the Alpha and Beta quadrants, so more than 30. But the important thing is we're not just rehashing. This is not a greatest hits series. We are not just doing fan service and hitting those things that you always wanted to see, because Trek needs to be constantly innovating and exploring.
So we're trying to evolve it. What you'll see out of the Tholians is a way for us to talk about societal changes that are happening now, a way to talk about foreign intervention, a way to talk about gender, a way to talk about othering. We're talking about all of that stuff within the context of the Tholian assembly, as we really get to see their homeworld, who they are, what they're like, and how different they are to us. The other thing we're going to be doing is using it to bring in another Star Trek antagonist, somebody you don't expect, which you'll be catching in issue 8 of Star Trek Year 5. So look out for that, our first big game changer. That'll give you a bit of a sense of what we're doing as we move on into Year 2.
Yeah, if you think there's only one surprise, you are sorely mistaken.
The key to Star Trek Year 5 is James T. Kirk. When we stepped into this, I think there is a lot of pull to write Spock all the time. He's such a fascinating character. He's so interesting, and that push and pull that has driven all of the J.J. Abrams movies, for instance, is something that you really want to write.
Yeah.
But it's been written to death. There's so much of it. If you're going to take on Star Trek Year 5 in the last season of TOS, you should really focus up on Kirk and really understand what he's been going through, because weirdly, that character hasn't been serviced as much.
Yeah, Shatner is the star, right? You have to maintain.
He is counting lines.
He's counting lines, exactly. But also, because Kirk is the beating heart of this show, we get to dive in and tell this story of, a father who's disconnected from his children, right? His son. We get to tell the story of a man who's evolving out of the role that he has known to love. Like, this is the final voyages of James T. Kirk, as far as he knows. And if we don't service that entirely, we've done the entire franchise a wild disservice.
Who is James T. Kirk if he's not the captain of the Enterprise is a question we ask at the beginning of issue 1, and we will be answering at the end of issue 24. That is how this whole thing is going to work.